that what is the difference between science and the other, which we can call put together as extra science. And I'm very confused always when you can see a debate by Dr. Javed Akhtar Sahab on his spirituality. It's a wonderful debate, and he points out what he means by spirituality. The basic question that spirituality and religion asks begins with why. Why day and night happen? Why stars are there? Why cosmos is there?
Now, when they ask, and he also mentioned, science kya hai? What is science? That some religious person has done that. इसके बिना आपका काम नहीं चलने वाला है.
The book, originally written in Hindi, is written in beautiful and very, very understandable and evocative. कि रकीबों ने रपट लिखाई है जाकर थाने में, गौहर बात करता है अक्ल की इस जमाने में. तो
कि सारी कुदरत का जन्म लेना बस एक साथ का मुंतज़िर हो. अगर ये सोचे कि मुंतज़िर था तो कुछ नहीं था जो मुंतज़िर हो कि वक्त पैदा नहीं हुआ था.
मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी ये है कि आप कितनी भी बातें कर लीजिए, लेकिन मदारी को तमाशा दिखाए बगैर छोड़.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम हैदर अब्बास नकवी है और इस वक्त स्वतंत्र की टीम जवाहर भवन पर है, दिल्ली में स्थित है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर एक बहुत बड़ी बात हो रही है, वो भी आज के दौर में विज्ञान क्यों ज़रूरी है, इस पर चर्चा हो रही है. और चर्चा के लिए जो लोग हैं, आइए चलते हैं, उनसे मुलाकात करते हैं, बात करते हैं और आपको सुनाते हैं. जी हाँ, किताब फ्रॉम मिथ्स टू साइंस गौहर रज़ा साहब ने लिखी हुई है. गौहर रज़ा साहब हमारे स्वतंत्र पर आ चुके हैं, तो आज जावेद अख्तर साहब भी मिलेंगे, पुरुषोत्तम अग्रवाल साहब भी मिलेंगे. उन लोगों के क्या विचार हैं और किताब किस पर है, आइए ये सब जानते हैं.
We would like to congratulate Gauhar Raza for publishing this book with us, and we look forward to bringing out many books with you in the days to come. That said, I would like to welcome you once again, and would invite Javed Saab, Professor Purushottam Agarwal and Gauhar Raza to the stage. Thank you. I would like to invite Gauhar Raza to talk about the book and take us through it.
Let me first of all thank all of you for being here, especially the children who have come from schools and their principals, because in these difficult times it is almost impossible to participate in such debates and such events. I today stand here and feel honored and privileged, and also feel elated because of many reasons. This book, if I claim that I have written the book, then it is only partially true, because a very large number of people have contributed to writing this book. I'm not saying it just for the heck of saying, because during the Kumbh Mela, when I met thousands of those who visit Kumbh Mela at Allahabad for the past 30 years and talk to them, they have contributed. My school teachers have contributed. My family members, a larger family has contributed to it. The TV debates where very vehemently our ideas of rationality were opposed by pundits and mullahs and padris, they have contributed a lot. And those who I read, those who wrote books, have contributed to this book. I think when I was scanning the literature for finding out answers to questions that bothered me since I was in a school like you, and believed me that I was in a school and I was young at that time. But anyway, some of the questions worried me a lot. The society around me was mainly of two kinds of people among whom I grew. One set of elders were progressive, some of them were communists, and I came from a communist family. My father was a communist and atheist. And in the larger society, most of the people believed in one religion or the other, predominantly Muslims in the university. And I heard two things when I was growing up very often. One was some of the choicest swear words. Atheist was almost a gali. And many other words like mulhid and shirk karne wale, वगैरह वगैरह. So all these words were pouring into my ears. And also I kept on hearing this claim that our religion and our belief, our even superstition, how scientific it is. All the knowledge is contained in our holy books. So, if there was science in these books, then the major question was how to define science or rationality. It was a difficult task. Normally, if you ask a question like, what is science? People will say that you are mad. Science is science. Everybody knows what is science. So what happens with certain words which are very often used in society like science, culture, democracy, that you don't tend to define them. You understand them. And when you communicate with somebody, then it is obvious what you are saying and there is no loss of communication. The other person also understands what do you mean by democracy or culture. But when you look at these words deeply, then the problem arises. It was very difficult for me to define science. And the book that I have written is the journey of trying to find answer to this question. When normally I ask this question, what do you mean by science, to activists or to very senior scientists, the answers were not very different. For the past 10 years, I have been collecting these answers. I have asked people to write the answers. I am very sorry. This should have been announced. So, it was a difficult task. And it took me to various philosophers and religious leaders. I had to study Charvak or Brihaspati philosophy. Some elements of what is rationality you get from them. Then you come to Buddha, who says don't believe in anything because it has been passed on to you generations after generations, or it is written in your scriptures, or it is believed by many people. First, try to rationally think about a claim, and once you accept it, use it for betterment of humanity. This was one definition of rationality. But then you come to Aristotle. He gives one definition where he says that every event that happens around us has a cause. So cause effect. If you want to understand the effect, you need to understand the cause and the relationship between the two. This was one definition. And down the line, when you come to Popper and Kuhn, you get definitions which do not satisfy a curious mind, because these are the definitions from within science. They are trying to look at science, what is science, from within. So what is the other for science? This was another question that bothered me. And the other was all religions put together. What was common in all the religions? What was common in myths and superstition? And that took me to a journey to understand what are these myths and superstitions. When a tribe believes that initially there was only one big drop of milk, and Dundari, the god, came and produced stone, and out of this stone he produced air, water, iron, etc., etc. 5 elements. And then again he came back and produced human beings after mixing these 5 elements. What is this? How do you look at this? So that took me to another question, that probably these are answers to questions that humanity asked initially when it started gaining consciousness. Which again leads to another very important question, which normally we do not ask. When did human being start asking questions? I tried to find the answer to this question, and till now I haven't been able to get a definite answer, because you cannot put a date on when human beings started asking questions. But there was a time, definitely, when they started asking questions and trying to seek answers to these difficult questions. And probably, when they gained consciousness, 2 very important questions before them were that who has created this universe? How was this universe created? And the other question was that what is the difference between dead and alive? And someone, or maybe a collective, provided beautiful, elegant, and very flexible answers to these questions. One was the story that I told you just now, that there was a creator who created the universe because he was all powerful. And the other was answered by invoking the idea of Ruh, Atma, or spirit, soul. So when soul is inside your body, you are alive, and when soul gets out of the body, you are dead. These two were very beautiful conceptual models of explaining the two basic questions, which I call meta question or sophic questions, that humanity has repeatedly asked. And at times we have got different answers. And this is the basis of probably all superstitions, all myths, and all religious texts. Answer to these questions basically form the bedrock of all religions. As society changed, newer elements were added to this basic story that there was a power which created the entire universe, which created the human beings, which also created not only human beings but societies and laws to run societies. So let me come back to the question with which I started. That what is the difference between science and the other, which we can call put together as extra science. So I came to the conclusion that the basic difference between the two is the way they ask questions and the way they seek answers. The questions that religion asks or spirituality asks, and I'm very confused always when you can see a debate by Dr. Javed Akhtar Sahab on spirituality. It's a wonderful debate, and he points out what he means by spirituality. Anyway, I am still confused about what these two are. The basic question that spirituality and religion asks begins with why. Why day and night happen? Why stars are there? Why cosmos is there? That is the basic question, and it leads you to supernatural power as you approach boundary of your knowledge. Let me just tell me when I have to stop. Let me take an example which is very close to my heart. If you ask somebody how does day and night occur, the answer today will be 99%. People will give you the answer, and this is substantiated by my surveys that Earth rotates. This will be the normal answer. 100 years back, yeah, Earth was stationary for most people, so answer would have been different. But today, this is the answer by anybody, whether believer or non-believer, scientist or layman. Now you ask, why does Earth rotate? So maybe you remember your basic physics and somebody will say that it is because of conservation of momentum and disbalance of gravitational force. Okay, fine. Why does that happen? Now you have reached limit of your knowledge, probably. The answer, and very simple, elegant, beautiful, satisfying answer is will of God. भगवान की मर्जी से. आसान है, कोई मुश्किल नहीं है समझने में, हमेशा दिया जा सकता है. But when you start it with how, then the problem arises. When you reach the limit and somebody asks, why conservation of momentum causes it, then there is a problem. You can't see will of God. You can't invoke supernatural power. Then you have to say, I do not know. I'll ask somebody, I'll hunt on the internet, etc., 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 etc. These will be the answers. Maybe the answer is that research is going on, and next generations will answer this question. As is the case with what happened during the 10 raised to the power minus 32 seconds after the Big Bang. We do not know. The standard model is unable to explain what happened during that period, that very short period. Scientists do not know. We have installed CERN reactor trying to create the conditions and are searching for Higgs boson particle, which is commonly known as God particle. So the answer to question, a meta question I am talking about, in daily life we always ask questions with how, why, where, etc. But meta big question of science remains a question that begins with how. And there are many other differences which I've tried to talk about. I've taken two major examples and turning points in the history of science as an example to explain my points. One is the journey of humankind to arrive at a conclusion that the entire universe is expanding and the whole clock of universe started about 14 billion years ago. This is a fascinating journey of humankind. And the other one is Darwinism, or the theory of evolution of a species. These have really changed the world, they've changed science. And therefore I selected these two examples and have tried to explain my conclusions through these two examples. I'll leave you with probably just after citing one example of the difference, very mundane but very important difference, that when somebody proves Einstein wrong and Lamarck and Hubble proved him wrong, and these were very junior, unknown scientists who challenged the most famous scientist of the world. First, Einstein laughed at them and said, your mathematics may be good, but your physics is atrocious. But both of them were proved correct, that universe is expanding. Einstein had changed his equation to it and introduced a constant to prove that universe is static. When Einstein realized that he has committed a mistake, he apologized. And he said openly and publicly that this was the biggest blunder of my life. Suppose somebody proves wrong what is written in Quran or Vedas or Torah or Bible, what will happen? But in science, when the younger generations like you prove the older generations wrong, we celebrate it. We give them the history. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauhar. Would like to invite a few people who are very much part of this bookmaking. And may I please invite Dr. Rajendra Bhatt. Unfortunately, Vaishali Mathur is not with us today. She is unwell. Dr. Sanjeev Mishra, my colleague, Professor Mridula Mukherjee, Professor Wasim Haider, and Ms. Shabnam Hashmi. May I please request all of you to come to the stage and release the book.
मेरे घर पे है।
May I please request Javed Akhtar to share his thoughts? Javed Akhtar, would you please speak?
Good morning, everybody. Gauhar Sahab, at the very outset, I'll say something which I'm going to say in the end also. You have written an exceptional book. It's not a good book, it's an exceptional book. And I hope that it reaches every corner of the world, and all those people who are willing to keep their mind open and eyes open should read this book. It's a very important book. We are living in very, very strange times, funny times. I'm sure that after 100 years or 200 years or maybe earlier, when the teacher in a school will be teaching about 20th century and 21st century to the children of 6th standard, the children will fall off their seats laughing. Because something is happening in last 150 years which had never happened in human society. And it is funny. It's really very funny. You see, those who were persecuting and prosecuting Galileo, they were not mad. They were ignorant. Their faith and their information was the same. They knew that earth is flat. They knew that sun goes around the earth. That was their knowledge. That was their faith. So maybe you can call them ignorant, but you can't call them mad. But here's somebody who works in ISRO, who works in NASA, who can send a rocket to Mars for a particular, precise location, and after that he is religious. This man is mad. Because he is living with information and knowledge which he owns, or she owns, and the faith which contradicts this knowledge. This is, in psychiatry, it is called schizophrenia. But there are so many patients in the world that you can't say that. Now, when they ask, and he also mentioned, science kya hai? What is science? That some religious person has done that. Okay, let there be light. Let's see what happens. Okay, I failed, I'll try again. What is science? It reminds me of a joke. Actually, everybody knows what is science. Why are you asking this question? You are just prolonging. You are not willing to reach the conclusion. You are not willing to accept the obvious reality. So you are getting into this discussion, what is science? Somebody asked somebody, are you happy with your job? He said, I'm very happy with my job. Are you happy with your friends? He said, of course, I'm very happy because I'm very fortunate to have some very good friends. Are you happy with your children? He said, of course, I'm happy with my children. Are you happy with your wife? He said, well, we have to discuss what is happiness. तो ये डेफिनेशन तब ज़्यादा ढूंढी जाती हैं when you don't want to accept certain reality. It's honestly wastage of time. साइंस क्या है? तुम अच्छी तरह जानते हो साइंस क्या है और वो तुम्हें सूट नहीं कर रहा है, इसलिए तुम इस सूडो इंटेलेक्चुअल डिस्कशन में जा रहे हो और हमसे पूछ रहे हो साइंस क्या है. तुम्हें पता है मगर तुम्हें अच्छा नहीं लग रहा, इसलिए यू आर वेस्टिंग टाइम. It's a futile, meaningless question. Science क्या? You know it. Everybody knows. Science is inquiry. Science is looking for truth. Science is looking for facts. मगर अजीब बात है. They say, what is the purpose? Why universe is there? There cannot be any why. Who told you there is a why? There is no why. Because the why or the purpose of the thing is never within the thing. You have an air conditioner to keep a room cool. You have a radio to listen to the news, wrong news, but doesn't matter. You have a car. What is the purpose of the car? That some people will go from point A to point B. The usage of the thing creates a purpose. And which is always outside the thing. It cannot be within the thing. It's not possible. जो पर्पस होता है, जो वाई है, वो उस चीज के अंदर नहीं होता, उसके बाहर होता है. तो यूनिवर्स का पर्पस हो कैसे सकता है? इसलिए कि यूनिवर्स के बाहर अगर कुछ है तो वो भी यूनिवर्स ही है. जहां कुछ नहीं है वहां यूनिवर्स नहीं, तो पर्पस क्या हुआ? हो ही नहीं सकता. ये है. ये क्यों है? आप हर चीज़ को एक स्केल पे नहीं बोल सकते. आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि देखिए एक स्केल बना ली है कि जो लिविंग बीइंग है वो उड़ सकते हैं कि नहीं उड़ सकते. भाई कुछ लिविंग बीइंग उड़ते हैं, कुछ नहीं उड़ते. आप किसी भी चीज़ में लिविंग बीइंग की एज ये हो लेती है नहीं, डिफरेंट स्पीशीज की डिफरेंट एजेस होती है. कोई भी चीज़ में आप यूनिवर्सल लॉ नहीं बना सकते हैं. तो यूनिवर्स के बारे में कैसे आप ये लॉ बना रहे हैं कि वाई? There is no why of universe. It's meaningless, it's purposeless. Actually, we are also purposeless. Everything is purposeless. Since we have developed a brain exceptionally efficient, we find a purpose, we make a purpose of our life. We were not born with a purpose at all. We were just an accident, a fluke. Our beginning is very humble. We should remember that. क्या है? इसमें आप पर्पस की क्या बात कर रहे हैं? हो ही नहीं सकता. ना हमारा कोई पर्पस था पैदा होते वक्त, वो तो हमने बना लिया. अब आप यूनिवर्स का पर्पस बना लीजिए. कहिए कि यूनिवर्स का पर्पस है उसे डिस्कवर करना, उसे समझना. बाहर ही हो सकता है, यूनिवर्स के अंदर उसका, यूनिवर्स का अपना कोई पर्पस नहीं है, जैसे हमारा भी अपना कोई पर्पस नहीं था. एक घास का ब्लेड होता है, उसका क्या पर्पस है? यही गलत है. लेकिन क्या करें? ये मिसाल बार बार यू कैन गिव. आई मीन these gods which are here, the religion that I at the most they are 3,000 years old. Human being is 10 times, if not more, older than that. We had a lot of religions. We had a lot of gods. We had gods of Rome, gods of Egypt, gods of Greece. What happened to them? Where are they? There was a religion before Christianity in Europe, Germanic religion. There was a god, he had a wife, 3 children, 2 sons, 1 daughter. Where has that family gone? So gods are mortal. What are they? Or they are like film stars. You know, as long as they are in the market, they are fine. But once they are out of market, फिर उनकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं। अभी कुछ स्टार्स में नाम नहीं लेना चाहता ये ऑस्ट्रेलियंस कि उनके साथ अगर मैं फिल्म शुरू करूं तो लोग मुझे पागल कहेंगे। You know, there was a time when Jupiter was worshipped, and Jupiter was not worshipped by ignorant people. Jupiter was worshipped by people who had Senate, who had the first concept of democracy, who had great philosophers, who had the architecture that still creates awe in our minds, and we try to imitate them. They were developed people, and much developed for their time, but they used to worship Jupiter. Tomorrow, if you come to know about me, that ये जो बोलता है ना कि एथिस्ट है, he's a liar. Actually, he gets up early in the morning, worship Jupiter for 2 hours, and then comes out of the house. They will not be shocked that I worship. They will be shocked that I worship Jupiter. Jupiter को वो करता है, पागल है? तो करते थे ना पहले लोग. And somehow, by some accident, if we develop 10 million people who worship, or 10 crore people who worship Jupiter, then you can't say anything. Then it will be a respectable faith. You see, it is the number of idiots that gives respectability to a stupid idea. कोई भी आप faith ले लीजिए, अगर उसमें सिर्फ एक आदमी हो या 2 आदमी हो, they will be committed to mental asylum. But it is the number. It is the number that demoralizes people. भाई इतने लोग कह रहे हैं तो फिर क्या बोले? तो what do we expect? What do we hope? That one day human being will be totally rational? And what is faith? What is the difference between faith and belief? I believe there is North Pole. I have not seen it. I have never gone there. But logic, rationale, evidence, witness, proofs tell me that there is a North Pole. Then why is it not my faith? Faith is something that doesn't require all these qualities or conditions. Faith is something which you have accepted without any logic, without any reason, without any evidence, without any proof. If you have all this, then it is your belief. Faith, there is a totally wrong term, blind faith. Faith is blind. So you don't have to say blind faith. You are believing, or you have come to a conclusion which has none of these conditions. What is this stupidity? That I start believing something without all this, and you will call it stupid. ये कैसे मानते हो? अगर मैं कोई दूसरी बात मानने लगूं without any evidence, without any proof, without any rationale, without any witness, you will say ये कैसे तुमने मान लिया? यहाँ आप इसे फेथ कहते हैं. फेथ भी वही है, accepting things without any logic, reason, proof. And you think it's your decision? No. You are brainwashed. You are damaged in your childhood. 99% people die in the religion in which they were born. And before they could say Jack Robinson, this idea was injected in their bones. It's child abuse. Teaching children religion is child abuse. Because it is like telling the child that you will have to become a doctor. Maybe you want to become a painter, we will not let you become a painter. You are born to become a doctor. आप अगर कोई पेरेंट्स ऐसे मिलेंगे तो आप उनको क्या कह रहे हो भाई, बच्चा बड़ा हो जाए, खुद डिसीजन लेगा, वो जो चाहेगा करेगा, वो पेंटर बनना चाहता है कि डॉक्टर बनना चाहता है कि इंजीनियर बनना चाहता है, आप उसको चॉइस कहाँ देते हैं? आपकी हिम्मत ही नहीं चॉइस देने की। आप एक काम कीजिए, बच्चे को पालिए, जब 17-18 साल का लड़का या लड़की हो जाए, उसने कहा बेटा ये 4-5 किताबें इंपॉर्टेंट दुनिया में रिलीजन की पढ़ लो, तुम्हें जो ठीक लगे वो मान लो। मैं बताता हूँ क्या मानेगा वो, उसकी चॉइस क्या होगी मैं आपको बता देता हूँ, नन। None. The kind of belief every religion makes you accept, in spite of you being an intellectual, high IQ, education, is unbelievable. It's shocking. And someday people will be shocked that there were people who were educated, there were people who had developed science to this extent and technology to that extent, and still they believe these things. They will laugh and they will cry. It's a fact. You may not accept it. Many people of faith will not accept it, but it's a truth. So what do we wish? That human beings should become totally rational? I'm afraid it's not possible. It will never happen. We are not programmed like that. It is again the very idea of our survival. You see, there is one thing that mothers love for the progeny, not only in human being. चलो भाई ह्यूमन बीइंग तो सोचे मेरा बेटा बड़ा होगा, पॉलिटिक्स में चला जाएगा, मिनिस्टर हो जाएगा, तो मुझे अभी से बच्चे से रिलेशन अच्छे रखने चाहिए। लेकिन ये प्रॉब्लम किसी बर्ड का तो नहीं है, ये किसी टाइगरस का तो नहीं है, किसी डियर का तो नहीं है, डॉग का तो नहीं है। You watch animal life on National Geographic or Discovery Channel, you will cry, you will get so emotional. How a mother takes care of the progeny. I mean, the basic instinct of any living being is self-protection, survival. The mother's love crosses that also. Without this irrationality, and which is, I mean, there is a little mother in each one of us, irrespective of gender. वो तो है मैं थोड़ी, हो सकता है वो मदरहुड हमारी अपने दोस्त के लिए निकला है या अपने बहन या भाई के लिए निकला है, लेकिन एक मदर पोर्शन हम सब में है, which is irrational. Love is irrational. Love cannot be totally logical, and without love, the species cannot survive. तो ये रहेगा। हम पूरे रीजनेबल हैं, लेकिन एक गेट है irrational, which is made by nature or the experience of survival for love. Now this is a gate which was made for love, मगर वो खुला हुआ गेट है. God, superstitions, religion, all of them enter from that gate. अब कुछ करना पड़ेगा. That there has to be a board at that gate. God, religion and other superstitions are not allowed. इसके बिना आपका काम नहीं चलने वाला है. तो उस काम की तरफ, and for that purpose, I think this book is one big step. And I congratulate you, Gauhar Sahab, and I'm so happy that I'm living to read this book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javed Sahab. It was really, mesmerizing. May I now please request Professor Purushottam Agarwal to share his thoughts, throw some light on the book. Professor Agarwal, if you please.
Friends, after these two very eloquent and elaborate expressions or explanations about the book. There are a couple of points which I would like to add. First of all, I join Javed Sahab not only in congratulating but thanking Gauhar for writing this book, because this was a very important book personally for me, for someone like me who is virtually science illiterate. And therefore, to get this book and to read it was an experience in personal gratitude. And also, I feel privileged that Gauhar, पता नहीं क्यों, I don't know, गौहर ने इसके हिंदी संस्करण का प्रीफेस लिखने के लिए मुझसे कहा. So I wrote whatever I could, and Gauhar has included that in the English version also. And it was through this book that I came to know that Gauhar has been pretending all his life that he doesn't know Hindi or cannot write Hindi with confidence. The book, originally written in Hindi, is written in beautiful and very, very understandable and evocative. As I noted in my preface and I repeat, Gauhar has a rare combination of being a scientist and a poet at the same time. And therefore that poetic quality, I do not know what has happened in the translation because I have not gone through the whole book, but in Hindi it reflected Gauhar. आपकी जुबान की जो पोइटिक क्वालिटी है वो हिंदी में साफ आई है, अंग्रेजी के भगवान जाने. अंग्रेजी की भी आई होगी, आपने अनुवाद किया है. See, the book, let us reflect, as Javed Sahab was talking about last 100 or 150 years. It's very interesting that at the end of 19th century, many people, many philosophers and thinkers, of course scientists, believed that the age of hegemony of religion are over. Science is expanding, the true knowledge or experiment or experience-based knowledge of universe is spreading very fast, and very soon the ideas like whatever religious ideas, they will become irrelevant or at least marginalized. I am not going to go into the details, but the fact remains that in 2025, the world is very religious, more religious probably, with the difference that more stupidly religious, not intelligently religious. It's a very strange time indeed. We are living in a time which is characterized by a very, very interesting contradiction. On one hand, we talk of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is increasing by the day. We are told that artificial intelligence ने ये चमत्कार कर दिया, कल वो चमत्कार कर देगी. I don't know what's happening to human intelligence. So artificial intelligence seems to be increasing in reverse proportion to the human intelligence. Because otherwise you cannot really have the theatre of absurd which we are having throughout the world. And therefore I particularly congratulate Gauhar for writing this book. On the occasion of launch of its Hindi edition, I had recited a शेर by Akbar Allahabadi in a slightly, क्या कहना चाहिए, समकालीन बनाते हुए. जावेद साहब, अकबर का वो जो शेर है कि रकीबों ने रपट लिखाई है जाकर थाने में, अकबर बात करता है खुदा की इस जमाने में. तो मैंने वो शेर इस वक्त के लिए बदला है कि रकीबों ने रपट लिखाई है जाकर थाने में, गौहर बात करता है अक्ल की इस जमाने में. तो इस जमाने में it's privileged, it's fashionable to be ignorant and to be proud of one's ignorance. I mean, I'm 70 now, and I have been a child like everyone else. I have been a young person like everyone else. I mean, I would feel embarrassed or I would feel, inappropriate to argue with someone who is knowledgeable. Now, this is the flavor of that time. And this happens in unexpected circles. In a professor's WhatsApp group, somebody writes a poem in the name of Premchand. एंड मैन पॉइंटेड आउट कि प्रेमचंद ने बहुत से गुनाह किए होंगे, कविता कभी नहीं लिखी. एंड व्हेन यू टेल दिस and you politely inform that, well, I have been teaching Hindi all my life, you are asked to shut up and don't be unnecessarily proud of being a bloody professor. So we are living in those times. So in such a situation, to write such a book is really something which must be encouraged, which must be, I would say, done by others also who are capable of doing such a book. Second thing which I want to underline, and this comes from what Javed Sahab was talking about. Faith, he is absolutely right, faith is by definition blind. But let us not forget that faith is not merely religious. There are secular faiths also, which could be more dangerous sometimes even than the religious faiths. We know the story of dictators, authoritarian governments, authoritarian people who were, I am sure if there were some clinical trials conducted, those people will be declared clinically mad. But they ruled and they killed people, and people had faith in them. People have faith in them even today. USA voted with great faith a certain gentleman. We also did something like that. So it's not as if faith is merely a religious problem. Faith is essentially a problem of, and sometimes it is done in an organized way, systematically, deliberately by the powers that be. This kind of faith is caused by constant denigration and marginalization of human intelligence and reasoning. I mean, I think in political history, in recent political history, there can be a no greater believer than Gandhiji. Gandhiji was a great believer. Gandhiji was pakka astik. And he made it repeatedly clear that I respect all the scriptures of all the religions, but anything contained in those scriptures going against my own vivek, my reason, my human understanding is not acceptable to me. Whether it is Gita, it is Quran, or it is Bible, or anything. So it is this capacity to think, to reflect, to critically interrogate even your dearest faith, your dearest individual, your dearest this thing, that is what makes human being into a human being. And a love, even a love, without such critical distancing from oneself and the beloved, is bound to result in suicide of the some kind or of the other. So whether we talk of science, we talk of faith, or we talk of anything, mythologies, we must keep that capacity intact. And finally, to my mind, the most important quality of this book is that it is not at all polemical. It does not attack religion as such. It does not attack even the idea of God or whatever. It makes the point in a very polite, persuasive and gentle way. And that is most important. Because if you really want to approach people, अब जैसे जावेद साहब ने कहा कि वो एक तरह का पागलपन है या जो भी है, तो किसी को अगर कोई बीमारी हो, कोई परेशानी हो, तो उसको ठीक करने के कई तरीके होते हैं. डंडे से आमतौर से बीमारियां ठीक नहीं होती. वो डंडा चाहे भौतिक डंडा हो और चाहे तर्क का डंडा हो. सो आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू नोट, एंड आई हैव बीन सेइंग दिस, गौहर ने इस किताब में डंडा नहीं चलाया है. गौहर ने इस किताब में परसुएट करने की कोशिश की है विद अटमोस्ट रेस्पेक्ट, with recognizing the fact that mythologies were also and are also part of human imagination, and therefore they determine our language even today. You cannot escape mythologies in that sense. You cannot dismiss them. But at the same time, you cannot surrender your critical sense, your sense of history, your capacity to argue and experiment to any kind of mythology, whether it is religious or it is secular. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Agarwal, for your thoughts and the evaluation of the book.
So as the editor of this book, I'd like to say that, it's pretty different from the Hindi version. It's not a mere translation of the Hindi book. It's a kind of a transcreation. Gauhar Raza kept a very different audience in mind while he reworked on the book. So I would encourage all of you to pick up a copy if possible. Having said that, we have listened to Gauhar Raza, Javed Saab and Professor Purushottam Agarwal.
तो देखा आपने आज क्या हमें समझना पड़ रहा है, साइंस क्यों ज़रूरी है आज के दौर में, इस पर बात हो रही है। क्योंकि जिस तरह से प्रोपेगेंडा चल रहा है, जिस तरह से साइंस के विरोध में एक कौम सी खड़ी होती जा रही है, वहाँ पर साइंस को बचाना आज के दौर पे इस पर चर्चा हो रही है, इस पर किताब लिखी जा रही है। आपने सबके विचार सुने, सबकी बातें सुनी और उम्मीद करते हैं कि आप इस पर अमल करेंगे और अपने विचार कमेंट्स पर देंगे। अब चलते चलते हम गौहर रज़ा साहब हैं और जावेद अख्तर साहब हैं, तो नज़मों और कविताओं की बात ना हो तो बात अधूरी हो जाएगी। तो उनकी नज़्म और कविता पर आपको छोड़कर चलते हैं और फिर मुलाकात होगी ऐसे ही किसी चर्चा के साथ। तब तक के लिए नमस्कार।
मारूपेंग एक जगह है साउथ अफ्रीका में जिसको क्रेडल ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी कहते हैं। ये नज़्म वहीं लिखी थी और इसका उन्वान है हदों के बाहर। यकीन करना तो है ही मुश्किल, ये सोचना भी सहल नहीं है कि वक्त ऐसा भी था कभी जब ये वक्त पैदा नहीं हुआ था। न बिखरे बिखरे थे ये सितारे, न कहकशां का सिंदूर था तब। अजीम कुदरत के गुलसिता में कोई शगुफा खिला नहीं था। न खाक थी तब, न आग थी तब, वो ज़र्रे जिनसे बना है सब कुछ, अभी वो पैदा नहीं हुए थे। न रोशनी थी, न था अंधेरा, न उन शुआओं की धीमी सरगम जो अब भी हम तक पहुंच रही है। न फासले थे, न कुर्बतें थीं, न हद के अंदर कोई करिश्मा, न हद के बाहर कोई हदें थीं कि वक्त ऐसा भी था कभी जब खला भी पैदा नहीं हुआ था। यकीन करना है कितना मुश्किल कि खुद ये कुदरत कहीं नहीं थी। अजीम कुदरत की सारी अजमत, ये कहकशाएँ, ये सब सितारे, ये वक्त रफ्ता के बहते धारे, ये बिखरे बिखरे सभी अनासिर, अजीम कुदरत की सारी क़ुव्वत बस एक नुक्ते पे मुंजमद थी। बस एक नुक्ता के जिस्म के दिल में ये सारी कुदरत छुपी हुई थी। वो सारे ज़र्रे और उनकी ज़िद भी, पार्टिकल्स एंड एंटी पार्टिकल्स के मुझे कोई बेहतर लफ्ज़ नहीं मिले। वो सारे ज़र्रे और उनके ज़िद भी जो अब पैदा होते ही रस्साकश थे। वो सारी क़ुव्वत का, सारे राज़ों का, सब शुआओं का फैल जाना कि जैसे यूँ हो किसी ने मुट्ठी में खाक भरकर हवा के रुख पर बिखेर दी हो। मगर ये ज़र्रे सिमट के आए। हसीन कुदरत के कायदों ने हंसी सितारों का खेल खेला। ये कहकशाएँ रची गईं तब कि जैसे यूँ हो किसी ने बढ़कर स्याहियों पर हसीन रंगों से शायरी की। हसीन सरगम के सुर बिखेरे। जन्म फना का ये खेल सारा अजीब से भी अजीब तर था। करोड़ों सदियों में जो घटा है उस एक लम्हे पे मुनहसिर था। यकीन करना तो है ही मुश्किल, ये सोचना भी सहल नहीं है कि सारी कुदरत का जन्म लेना बस एक साथ का मुंतज़िर हो। अगर ये सोचे कि मुंतज़िर था तो कुछ नहीं था जो मुंतज़िर हो कि वक्त पैदा नहीं हुआ था। अजीम तर है ये ज़हन इंसान जो इन सवालों के उलझे उलझे से ताने बाने की हर गिरह को, हर एक गुत्थी को खोलने में न जाने कब से लगा हुआ है। ये बिखरी वादी जहाँ पे मैं हूँ, जो नस्ल इंसान का पालना है, यहाँ पे इंसान ने आँख खोली, यहीं पे पहले सवाल पूछे। सवाल ऐसे शऊर इंसान की वुसअतों को जो लम्हा लम्हा बढ़ाते आए। सवाल जिंदा हैं अब भी ऐसे जो वुसअतों को बढ़ा रहे हैं। यकीन करना तो है ही मुश्किल, ये सोचना भी सहल नहीं है कि वक्त ऐसा भी था कभी जब सवाल पैदा नहीं हुए थे।
Thank you, God. May I request Javed Saab to recite a poem?
मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी ये है कि आप कितनी भी बातें कर लीजिए, लेकिन मदारी को तमाशा दिखाए बगैर छोड़ तो वो होता ही है। क्या सुनो भाई? वक्त, ये एक नज़्म है, वक्त सुन लीजिए। ये वक्त क्या है? ये क्या है आखिर कि जो मुसलसल गुजर रहा है? ये जब न गुजरा था तब कहाँ था? कहीं तो होगा। गुजर गया है तो अब कहाँ है? कहीं तो होगा। कहाँ से आया, किधर गया है? ये कब से कब तक का सिलसिला है? ये वक्त क्या है? ये वाकई, हादसे, तसादुम, these incidents, these accidents, these conflicts, every pain, every pleasure, every joy, every sorrow, ये वाकई, हादसे, तसादुम, हर एक गम और हर एक मसरत, हर एक अदियत, हर एक लज़्ज़त, हर एक तबस्सुम, हर एक आंसू, हर एक नगमा, हर एक खुशबू, वो ज़ख्म का दर्द हो कि वो लम्स का हो जादू, खुद अपनी आवाज़ हो कि माहौल की सदाएं, ये जहन में बनती और बिगड़ती हुई सदाएं, वो फिक्र में आए ज़लज़ले हों कि दिल की हलचल, तमाम एहसास, सारे जज्बे, ऑल द फीलिंग्स, ऑल द इमोशंस, ये जैसे पत्ते हैं, बहते पानी की सतह पर जैसे तैरते हैं, अभी यहाँ हैं, अभी वहाँ हैं, और अब है ओझल। दिखाई देता नहीं है, लेकिन ये कुछ तो है जो कि बह रहा है। ये कैसा दरिया है? किन पहाड़ों से आ रहा है? ये किस समंदर को जा रहा है? ये वक्त क्या है? कभी कभी मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि चलती गाड़ी से पेड़ देखो तो ऐसा लगता है दूसरी सब जा रहे हैं। कभी कभी मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि चलती गाड़ी से पेड़ देखो तो ऐसा लगता है दूसरी सब जा रहे हैं, मगर हकीकत में पेड़ अपनी जगह खड़े हैं। तो क्या ये मुमकिन है? सारी सदियाँ कतार अंदर कतार अपनी जगह खड़ी हों, ये वक्त साकित हो और हम ही गुजर रहे हों। इस एक लम्हे में सारे लम्हे, तमाम सदियाँ छुपी हुई हों, न कोई आइंदा न गुज़िश्ता। जो हो चुका है वो हो रहा है, जो होने वाला है वो हो रहा है। मैं सोचता हूँ कि क्या ये मुमकिन है सच हो कि सफ़र में हम हैं, गुजरते हम हैं, जिसे समझते हैं हम गुजरता है वो थमा है, गुजरता है या थमा हुआ है, इकाई है या बटा हुआ है मुंजमद या पिघल रहा है, किसे खबर है, किसे पता है ये वक्त क्या है।
Thank you so much. That was really, really amazing.